overseas, Iran says it will start to enrich uranium up to 20% and will do so as soon as possible. Mark Meredith is looking into the details of this new development and what it means for the U.S. Mark.
Griff, good afternoon. Sunday marks 1 year since a U.S. airstrike killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. And as that anniversary nears, national security officials, they are closely watching Iran, looking for any possible signs of retaliation. And over the last several weeks, the Pentagon had sent additional resources into the Persian Gulf in an apparent effort to deter any aggression from Iran. For example, 2 B-52 bombers, they recently wrapped up a 30-hour mission into the region. But late Thursday, the Pentagon made a surprise announcement that the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz is coming home, wrapping up a nearly 10-month-long deployment, a potential signal to Iran that tensions can be de-escalated. Meantime, as you mentioned, Iran says it plans to enrich more uranium up to 20% purity at its Fordow nuclear facility, Iran making its decision known to the UN nuclear watchdog agency. This as Iran's foreign minister issued a fresh warning to President Trump today on Twitter. He urged the president not to fall for a, quote, trap while accusing Israel of trying to provoke war by targeting U.S. troops in Iraq. President Trump, he has repeatedly urged Iran to think twice before any military or nuclear escalation. You may remember right before Christmas, he said he would hold Iran responsible for any attacks on U.S. personnel in Iraq. That was after that attack in Baghdad's Green Zone that U.S. officials believe Iranian-backed militants were responsible for. Now, the administration says next week, Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf, he'll be heading the road, going to the Middle East. He's expected to meet with officials in Cyprus, Bahrain, and Qatar.
Will Nancy Pelosi be reelected as Speaker and do so on the first ballot when the 117th Congress convenes on Sunday? This is a big if, and it's not as easy as it sounds, not by a long shot. Remember, she has to get half the votes of those present that day, and it's not as easy as you think. No one can vote by proxy. 2 Democrats are quarantining themselves for the COVID virus. In addition, 2 others have publicly announced that under no circumstances will they vote to re-elect Speaker Pelosi. Last time, 10 Democrats deserted the lady with the gavel, and she held on. That's because Democrats had a big edge in Congress. Now, the split between the parties is the closest it has been since 1958. And again, the magic figure is 216. That's half of those who are going to be present on Sunday. If she does not get that amount, then it goes to a second ballot. All sources on Capitol Hill agree. If the Speaker doesn't win on the first ballot, she will get out on the second because there's nowhere to go but down. And in that case, it's anyone's game. Hakeem Jeffries, the chairman of the House Democratic Conference, long tipped as the eventual successor to Speaker Pelosi, may make his move then. And with Republicans united behind their leader, Kevin McCarthy of California, it's not inconceivable that there could be a Republican speaker, at least for a couple of months. So get a ringside seat for this Sunday. It's going to be exciting.
Well, in a new report from the National Pulse, an expose has been released regarding the China-U.S. Exchange Foundation, CUSES. Now, this was funded by the vice chairman of the Chinese Political Consultative Conference. This is a main Communist Party CCP organ in China. It was later identified as a component of the Chinese Communist Party's United Work Front, their information operations around the world. According to the U.S. government, this report aims to co-opt and neutralize sources of potential opposition to the policies and authorities of its ruling Chinese Communist Party and, quote, influence overseas Chinese communities, foreign governments, and other actors to take actions or adopt positions supportive of Beijing's preferred policies. The National Pulse discovered that the CCP was paying for national media key figures to come to China on familiarization trips. This included recruiting top journalists to travel to China, selected for their effectiveness and opportunities for favorable coverage. I think you'll recognize some of the names: The New York Times, The Atlantic, Huffington Post, Boston Globe, Boston Herald, Slate, Vox, NPR, CNBC, Newsweek, the LA Times, the Baltimore Sun, the Chicago Tribune, the Guardian, the New Yorker, the Financial Times, Foreign Policy, the Philadelphia Inquirer, New York Magazine, the Washington Post. The list goes on and on. In addition to this travel, many of the organizations also had paid dinners from the CCP. These often took place in New York, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, according to FARA filings. What isn't said in the filings is what was said on these trips and at these dinners, and what the media companies offered in return. And another question is, why was the CCP inviting them again and again to these dinners and on multiple trips? After all, they said it was for favorable coverage.
By the way, the stuff we had, we didn't pick out just the shout-outs for the show and for yours truly. In the opening segment, we get more to Maricopa County. It's like an 8-minute video. We're going to give a shout-out to everybody who's out there in Maricopa County. You changed direction of history. You got people quitting, people resigning. You've got the Attorney General has not had anybody's back, now jumping into the amicus brief. Every day, you're taking another bite. Now, last thing before we get to Ian Smith. Dr. Guan in the last episode. Here is a work assignment. When the deplorables, when you out there, because you're the smartest audience, you buy more books, we're making things bestseller. This is about the Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. This is Build Back Better, their plan, no conspiracy. They've laid it out all over the world. The Great Reset versus the Great Awakening. This is what the exclusive interview with Archbishop Vigano is on Monday. But when this audience can be as articulate and has a deep understanding as Dr. Guan, someone that had to leave mainland China and come here to the West, right? And actually undercover came and come forward. When that happens, when you can be as articulate about the geopolitical situation and about freedom and about the civilizational, there's not the civilization between the Chinese people and the American people. This is about putting forward freedom, freedom, freedom for the people of the world. Remember, only the Chinese people can get their freedom. We are simply here to assist, right? And that's why we're so honored to have so many of the Lao Beijing, the whistleblower movement, the new federal state. Much more about the new federal state. This thing is really picking up momentum, getting people from all over the world to join, including many Westerners in these countries. They're to help. Okay, I want to turn now. In 2021, I had to have Rudy on, on the first show, had to have Boris on, had to have Liz Ure on, but I really had to bring this guy back, Ian Smith. Ian, you're one of the most controversial guys up in Jersey, and that's saying something, okay? But I want to leave the controversy aside because you actually speak. I want to go to the signal, not the noise of Ian. I know you're fighting political battles every day, but you have this concept of one of the central problems in the Judeo-Christian West, and we had some Chinese women on here a week ago said, no. Ian's actually talking about a bigger problem about males on a global basis. What's the problem, and what should people focus on in 2021 to do? You got about 4.5 minutes. Just let it rip.
So everything that we're seeing, politically and throughout our society and throughout the globe, and this tailspin that the world kind of seems to be in, I think, is the result of men not being men. Our society has gotten a little too comfortable and has gotten a little too far away from the traditional values and the traditional roles of men in society. And as a man, I think it's important that you start looking around at the landscape and being really honest with yourself moving forward into 2021. The world as we know it is changing rapidly in front of us. And it is your duty as a man, no matter who you are, to make sure that change is the best change possible for your loved ones, for yourself, for your community, and for your country as a whole. And what you're seeing right now is the result of a long game being played out, weakening men around the world. When men are weak, governments and institutions and power structures do as they please because there is nobody to stand firm against them. I first started. So
how do they? Do you have a website? Do you have a website? Do you have information? How can guys start to wake up from this, particularly the younger generation, the under 30s, the under 40s that maybe are not the original gangsters like some of us?
There's a lot of stuff out there. It does start to need to get centralized, and there's a lot of us kind of talking about creating a bigger movement between the combination of a lot of people's ideas. What I would recommend is for any guy who's starting to look around and question how he can help and how he can change the world, start by reading. There's a book that I would recommend every man in society today to read from young to old, and that is The Way of Men by Jack Donovan. It's a fantastic book. Jack is a phenomenal writer, very politically incorrect. And these books were written about 10 years ago, and they couldn't be more accurate for the time. And then start initiating yourself with men that are actually making a difference. You look around your social circle, and if the men in your social circle are not making a difference in the world around them, then you may need to find some new friends, and they're out there. Use social media. Look up people like Ryan Mitchler, like Andy Frisella, like Jack Donovan. These men are starting to lead the way in a resurgence in traditional masculinity.
We're gonna have you back on next week. This is gonna be a big deal of us. We're also gonna have something for the ladies on this topic. So we're gonna be driving some. We're not really have gotten much into the cultural stuff here on War Room because we've been so with impeachment and the pandemic and geopolitics, but we're going to get to the signal part of that, not the noise, all in 2021. That's what we're going to have.
Dear comrade in arms, this is a human and persistent power speech, faith and religion, economics and politicals, a accumulated transformation of humanity and morality. No one can block. Just who is going to change? You play the role that no one can block you. This is an era. We really feeling it. Whistleblower revolution this thing. Enter us deeply into each family of our comrade, and each part of life. It's all about supporting the whistleblower revolution one by one family. The whistleblower revolution has become the life many comrade in arms indispensable, and everywhere in the world, and I really didn't expect so many comrades in the world support us everywhere. There are no countries, Africa, South America, Asian, Eastern Europe, North Europe, Western Europe, North America, needless to say, the real beginning of mankind. I never thought of it before. Just want to eliminate the CCP. Because of CCP, he killed people all over the world. How huge is this hatred? Who wants to send it back? It's never possible. No one dared to talk about it. I found the Chinese people. Trump tweeted that had more votes than it had people voting by a lot. This travesty cannot be allowed to stand. It would rig the election. Why not even fit for third world countries? Trump slammed Fox News watching. At some Fox News almost as bad as watching fake news. At some CNN, new alternatives are developing. Trump condemned Twitter. Twitter is shadow banning like never before, a disgrace that our weak and ineffective political leadership refuse to do anything about big teach. They are either afraid or stupid. Nobody really knows. Dr. Li Mengyan tweeted, "It's my great honor to be awarded by #WarRoom as Woman of the Year together with Man of the Year, Sir, at San Rudy Giuliani." Pompeo tweeted, "The Hong Kong 12 had no bail, no choice of lawyer, and no access to family. This is a stark proof of future of justice in a Hong Kong stripped of its protection and an authoritarian one country, one system framework." Navarro posted a Twitter denouncing the newly signed Europe-China trade deal, a compromise Europe feels behind a bamboo curtain, and the CCP kills millions. A self-media controlled by CCP published an article blaming the pandemic in Shenyang on Miss Yin, an old lady who returned to China from abroad. At night, on December 31, 2020, the WHO officially announced major mutation in the CCP virus, including the 4 mutated strains. 2 U.S. destroyers sailed through the Taiwan Strait. The CCP's foreign ministry responded that they oppose this. The CCP Defense Ministry started Hong Kong trips, a foray safeguarding the stability and prosperity in Hong Kong. The CCP's Defense Ministry said they held a talk with India to promote the next round of command-level negotiation. On December 31, 2020, Tongliao City CDC received a request for investigation to persons with close contacts returned to Inner Mongolia from Beijing on different flights. Liu Qiangdong stepped down as executive of more than 200 companies in 2020. The PLA ratcheted up its development of self-destruction mechanism on soldiers' communication deceives. The CCP developed such as self-destruction deceive to control its military. Diagnosed CCP-Virus cases were found in Changping District and Xingshou Village in Beijing, but the authority never reported the info. On December 30, 2020, a virus case was found at Yulong Bay community in Dalian. The gates of residential buildings were sealed by welding. Everyone in community had to quarantine at home for 21 days. There was severe CCP-Virus outbreak in Pingyang City, Liaoning Province. The government imposed all kinds of restrictions. People waiting subways aren't allowed to enter together. 40 people entered the subway station in the virus, so many people line up outside. There are also people waiting across the street, traveling and fighting. Beijing noted 9 critical groups of people who should take the CCP-Virus vaccine. We announced 9 critical groups of people who should be vaccinated by national government's plan. The 9 critical groups include custom office agent, loading and unloading, transportation workers at custom portals, transportation workers, students studying abroad, medical staff, government workers, the police, firefighters, social workers, utility workers, nursing home workers, and communication workers. All citizens in Tiexi district in Shenyang City had to take free virus testing groups. They were asked to keep 1 meter away from each other in social distancing. Liaoning outbreak out of control following Dalian and Shenyang. The epidemic also spread in Anshan on the 31st, and residents began to rush to buy food and supplies. Informed Netizen exposed multiple confirmed cases in Tiexi district. A bathing center attended at landmark New Town was denounced. The bathing center and nearby markets had been closed. The official media of China Communist Party did not report this yet. Those who come out the bars must be quarantined. All on board. The PLA new dry dock at Sanya Basement Station Airport carried permanently. CSAC released a commercial satellite image showing that the CCP has been expanding a Navy base in Sanya, Hainan Province. USNI News reported days ago. Naval Aviation Facility in base was attended and a serious construction for 2 large dry docks is close to completion. Ukraine ordered a novel coronavirus vaccine from China. Ukraine Health Ministry signed a contract with China Sinovac Biotech to buy 191 million dose novel coronavirus vaccine from the company, according to the Ukraine President Office website December 3rd. And the 8 degrees of cold wind of New Year Eve and Princess Area hold 12 lights. Experience spot for 12 Hong Kong people holding White Lily to experience a condolence to 831. Chilly windy, Hong Kong Wearer Yue, redness person wearing a thin shirt, was released from prison. In the occupied area of Hong Kong, the war criminal and Hong Kong CCP to the resistance worries of its collection of repression. Hundreds of people gathered on New Year Eve in front of waterfront of Tiansha, chanting the review of Hong Kong era revolution.
亲爱的战友们啊，
这是一场人类上前所未有的话语权、信仰和宗教、经济和政治、人性和道德一场彻底的大转变，无人可以挡，只是谁来改变。你扮演了什么角色，谁都挡不了，这就是时代。
我们真的是感受到了爆料革命这些东西深入咱们战友每个家庭、每个生命的每个人，都是一家一家的支持爆料革命。爆料革命成了很多战友生命中不可缺少的，而且是五湖四海。而且我真也没想到，世界上原来这么多战友支持我，无处不在，没有任何国家，没有任何地方。非洲的、南美洲的、亚洲的、东欧的、北欧的、西欧的，那北美洲就不用说了。
全人类真正的开始了一个从来想都不敢想，就是消灭共产党，因为他杀了全世界人，这个仇多大？谁想送回去？永远不可能，没有一个人敢谈。
我发现咱中国人真是憋的时间太长了，这个力量太大了，集结真正的力量，准备着没有互联网的新中国，我们每个人要扮演的角色，灭共没你不行。